superior.
Settle down and be sanctified.
Evasion is futile. Bring it! Inflict at the blazing side! Sweep the ground!
Bow your head.
Hello everyone, welcome back. There's not much to talk about, so let's be nice and concise. So, I'm surprised I haven't actually heard a whole lot from anyone about Forward Vape Neuvillette. It's not necessarily Neuvillette's best team, but it is still an interesting option for him, and it was for a brief and shining moment the CN meta, if my memory serves. And obviously Mavuika is a fantastic addition to this team as, of course, one of your Pyro options. I think the folks who even thought about Forward Vape Neuvillette throughout the years, or year I guess, would often try and bring Xiangling into this team, which meant you definitely need a 3000 ER on someone like Xiangling. So we're definitely seeing one of the big advantages of bringing Mavuika over Xiangling, which is that you don't need 3000 ER. On top of that, having Xilonen or Citlali as your defensive option, and let's say Nahida or Emilie as your Dendro option to prevent Neuvillette's Hydro from accidentally taking over, pretty much meant that Neuvillette was guaranteed to be doing a lot of damage. And with Xilonen and Citlali, you could actually maintain the fighting spirit generation, because remember, we're doing charge attacks with Neuvillette. So that part of Mavuika's ult, where normal attacks can get you extra fighting spirit, completely out of the cards. Now let's just quickly discuss the differences between the options that I've just laid out, so that we have a better idea of who we probably would want to go for. This is of course going to end up being a little bit of a personal preference, honestly, or what we may choose to kind of not worry about too much if we don't have those characters available. So Xilonen, especially R1 Xilonen, can provide the team with an overall higher damage buff compared to Citlali. However, of course, if you have Nahida on the team, then you're going to be running into what I call second rotation memes, specifically with Draconic stacks. This is not a problem if you have C1 Neuvillette, but I don't have C1 Neuvillette. I am, of course, speaking from the perspective of C0 Neuvillette. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but you might have second rotation memes with Emilie as well, especially because her skill from memory lasts 45 decades, so there is that. Now, Citlali, on the other hand, can also provide some additional off-field damage, and, well, the main thing is that she's cryo, which is huge, because anyone who's played Forward Vape Neuvillette with someone like Layla, for example, would know that basically means you're never going to run into second rotation memes when it comes to Draconic stacks. This is because cryo can coexist with Dendro, so you can always maintain full Draconic stacks, no problem, at C0. However, Citlali's passive is still only a 20% Hydro Pyro Res Shred, and when you compare it to, let's say, Xilonen's 36% Hydro Pyro Geo Res Shred at skill level 10 for a team like this, yeah, it's not going to be as strong. On top of that, we also have to talk about Starcaller's Watch, which is a 28% damage buff for the active character. So if you only care about Neuvillette's damage, then this is a good weapon to potentially go for right now. Alternatively, if you have, let's say, Peak Patrol Song on Xilonen, that is a 25.6% damage buff, which is obviously a little bit lower than Starcaller's Watch, but it is, of course, for the entire team, so that's really, really good. That means that Mavuika and Nahida can actually do some more damage. So, yeah, if you build them for damage, for example, then, well, there we go. Nahida's ult, meanwhile, can of course give Neuvillette an EM buff, and it can be a very substantial EM buff, which is very useful because, once again, we're forward vaping, right? But, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, her Dendro aura is very, very strong, which generally means you're going to run into second rotation memes with regards to those Draconic stacks. So once the Draconic stack that comes from the Crystallize from Xilonen runs out, yeah, it's kind of Jova for you. On top of that, Nahida's personal damage is going to be a lot lower than usual because, well, look at this team. It's not an aggravate team. Or it's not even a quicken team for that matter. So she's going to be doing less damage. That's just a fact. At that point, Emilie does end up being a much more interesting option, I feel like. Although, if you want to, hyper-focus on Neuvillette, then Nahida can still be absolutely perfectly fine for that EM buff. Emilie will just simply do more damage than Nahida, especially with the regular burning auras that should be occurring, I think. I'm assuming her Dendro app is going to be enough to prevent Neuvillette from producing an underlying Hydro Aura, because you don't want that underlying Hydro Aura. Oh, hell no, you don't want that, right? Now, to put it in perspective, I tried with Yugwe. Yeah, Yugwe has enough Dendro app, I think. I'm hoping Emilie has about as fast Dendro app as Yugwe. All this to say, we certainly have a much more broader array of options available for this kind of team. And of course, our usual alternatives always exist. Zhongli, Kachina, C4 Layla, like I mentioned, Diona even, especially C6 Diona, who's currently available on the banner, Baiju, Yao Yao, like I mentioned earlier. But since we're talking about a team with Mavuika, I would definitely put some emphasis on Kachina, because she can use Scroll, which is fantastic as an alternative should you be missing Xilonen or Citlali for the team. Otherwise, how we build these characters remains exactly the same. Marechausee on Neuvillette, Scroll on Xilonen, Deepwood or Golden Troupe on Nahida. I mean, you're not going to be really doing a whole lot of damage, but it's an option, I guess. And Obsidian or Golden Troupe, I guess, on Mavuika, because you might run into, well, depending on how you decide to play it, you may run into uptime problems with regards to Obsidian Codex, because you may end up sitting on Neuvillette for quite some time. That's just something you may want to consider. Golden Troupe could end up being a pretty hilarious option anyway. There is no real reason whatsoever, however, to use Scroll on Mavuika. This is, of course, a build that I have discussed in previous teams. This is not something you're going to want to do, because the goal is to never have an underlying Hydro Aura from Neuvillette to therefore have a reaction from Mavuika. You're trying to maintain an underlying Pyro Aura, so Scroll will be more or less useless on a team like this. If you do decide to run Scroll Mavuika, the only character you're buffing is of course going to be a Dendro character, so I guess if you're playing with Emilie and you really want to make sure that Emilie's doing more damage, then I guess that could be an option, but I've heard from various Kinich players that might not work out so well. So there we go. Let me know what all of this in the comments below. How do you feel about Forward Vape Neuvillette? Like I said, this is just a really quick thing because, I mean, there's not too much that needs to be said. It's working exactly as it has been in the past, and frankly, not too much has changed about it. It just happens to mean that with something like Mavuika's ult, Neuvillette is suddenly doing even more damage, and we do like that. Is this a better team than Molani? Probably not. I think Forward Vape is still very much Molani's playground, and I will probably be looking at Molani in a sec. Like, I've already tried playing Molani teams. Spoiler alert, they're fantastic, but I do have a different setup for Molani compared to Neuvillette, mainly because Neuvillette, I think, has a higher Hydro app, so there is that. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact action, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
That's right. Light of the blazing sun! Try and stop!
Silence!